Hey everybody, this is Raul with Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have a great honor and pleasure of chatting with not one, but two bassists. I have Maurice Verloop on one side and David Keif on the other, and these gentlemen are from the faculty of the Musicians Institute, the College of Contemporary Music. And so that you guys can get to know Maurice and Dave a little more, why don't we start with you, Maurice? Tell us a little bit about your background and kind of about yourself as a bassist.
Hey, Ronald. Well, thank you again for the opportunity. It's pretty awesome that you guys connected with us, and more than honored to share bass wisdom and details like that. Personally, myself, I was always attracted to music. I'm going to credit my brother with that. He was a record collector. My brother's about 10 years older than me, but I remember his friends coming over, and they're playing Motown records and Beatles and things like that. And I would always go up and hang with them, and my music attraction started there. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And by the time I get into junior high, the high school band is auditioning students to start there, and I'm like, oh, music in school, this is great. So obviously they didn't have electric guitars and things like that in high school band, but I did go for that. I actually played trombone, so there was my introduction into bass clef.
Okay.
But that's a school on the East Coast. I grew up in Northern Virginia, close to the Washington, D.C. area, and that was a Clark County high school school chain that I was in. In my class, I had a friend, and he was a drummer, and I remember going over to his house one time and seeing him play on his kit. And again, he was young, but he's playing on this kit, and that blew me away. I just thought, that is the coolest thing. So I wanted to be a drummer. So I go home, I want to have drums. And to make a long story short, my parents wouldn't allow drums in the house. And actually, after working at the school, I completely understand that call. But a lot of friends were guitar players. So I was able to talk them into, letting me check out bass. So that's where bass came into the picture, because I wanted to play, cool music and things like that, not just the marching stuff that the high school was doing. Mm-hmm. And that was my introduction into the instrument. And marriage made in heaven, to make a long story short again. I took a few lessons here and there, mostly self-taught at this point. And by the time I get to 17 years of age, and I'm playing with bands for a little while, and we're starting to play high school dances and parties and things like that, I'm into the hard rock genre for the majority of the music I play. Was doing some Eric Clapton and some classic rock things as well then too. But the hard rock genre seemed to be where I gravitated to, and that turned into bands that became, touring professionals, and we did the East Coast between New York and Florida. And this is during the 80s, and this is, living that look and having that kind of lifestyle. Very fun, enjoyed it very much. The decade went by very fast, and I am still, very self-taught and just realizing that this is sort of what I want to do with my life. But towards the beginning of the 90s, music started to change, and the scene that was happening with our area was changing, and that's kind of what was going on with Seattle. So this prompted me to think about some change, because the music we were doing wasn't really cool anymore, and things had changed. And I decided to come out to the West Coast and check out California, and I moved to San Diego, actually with a lady who's my wife now. And I moved to San Diego and quickly found out that I was a one-trick pony. I had a limited set of skills. And I was meeting different musicians out here, but it wasn't falling into place as easily as it was back home. And kind of came up to this fork in the road in my mind. Well, do I continue with this, or do I let this go at this point? And then I decided that, it's still what I love to do. And I, between the discussion I had with my wife and everything, discussed that maybe an education would be the best thing to do with that. And from there, I write back to Berkeley, which is on the East Coast where I'm from, and I'm checking out a couple other smaller music schools. And Musicians Institute was definitely a school that I was aware of because of all the magazines I had been reading through the 80s, and they always had an ad in there. So I came up and checked out Musicians Institute and fell in love with the entire concept and the school, and my initial visit had me locked in. I was turned on at that point. And this is end of the 90s, like 96, 97. I come down here and I became a student and studied here for 2 years. And I've actually never left. I started working as a teacher's assistant afterwards, and then became an instructor, and then started working in the administration part of the school along with teaching. And now I chair the program, and that's an honor because people like Dave are on my staff, and actually Dave was a teacher of mine, and many of the teachers that are still on staff were here when I was studying. So as weird as that sounds, it's turned out to be, a very happy little environment for the bass community that we have at the school here. And needless to say, Hollywood, California is a music hub, and outside work has come from being connected to this place. And it's an unhoused fraternity, so to speak. But it's just living a pretty happy life, being able to make a living with my bass and work with these great gentlemen and these young and up and coming musicians. A lot of talented young ladies and gentlemen out there, and it's the pay it forward concept at this point in my life, and really enjoying that.
Very cool. And as tempting as it is, when you mentioned that you've been there ever since, I get images of like the Hotel California where you check in and you can never leave.
That's a fair assessment, and what a better place to have that happen than Los Angeles, right?
There you go. Well, and Dave, same question. Your journey. How did you get started with this?
Well, my father's a very good musician, and it kind of started like that. He's a jazz piano player. So I started in grade school with violin, took some drum lessons, took some guitar lessons, and finally landed on bass. Had some private lessons, and it's kind of it's like the joke, I missed my fourth lesson because I started doing jobs with my dad. He took me out, and I was immediately doing, casuals like corporate events or stuff like that with my father, playing kind of jazz gigs, dance gigs. Mm-hmm. And so from there I worked on cruise ships in my late teens. And I moved to LA after that. I immediately started doing, gigs and recordings, and I started teaching a little bit. I started teaching at MI in '89, believe it or not. So it's been quite a long time, almost, 30 years almost. Toured a lot with a guy named Mark Lindsay in the late '90s, early 2000s. He was the lead singer of Paul Revere and the Raiders, so we would do a lot of weekend travels. And then I was still able to keep my MI schedule. So, I went to North Texas State for a little while before LA, I guess. And so sort of a combination of learn by trial of fire and also some formal education. A lot of my detailed education has come from teaching, actually. The things I didn't understand, I do now because I had to sort of learn from the guys I was teaching with the stuff that I didn't know, and so it's been a cool ride. I mean, I love LA because the competition is very stiff, but it's also a great community of people. Some of the world's best musicians and bass players are here, so on any night you can go out and hear some of the best guys, and so there's a lot to be learned by being here, and which is one reason why the school is a great place to be, because it's a building filled with guys who all have sort of a similar goal, which is to get great at something that they really love.
Gotcha.
And so anyway, I had kind of a mixed bag of formal and informal education, and so here we are.
Gotcha. And it's interesting because with every bassist that I talk to, we do mention it as a journey, because everybody is kind of going on their own path. There's not just one way to get to wherever you're going when it comes to music. And in some instances, it's incredibly simple. There's a fellow in Africa that sent us. He wanted to play bass so badly, but he didn't have a bass, so he fabricated his own using one wire, a 2x4, a tree trunk, a goat skin. He has to build a fire to get the skin to tighten up, and then he marked on the board numbers that correspond to the notes, and he hits it with a Coke bottle on the number, and he gets his bass notes this way. And
wow.
You know, certainly his journey, and he just released a CD fairly recently with his instrument, you know, and it's like, okay, when you really want to do this, you can. It just really kind of depends on, you know, the journey and the choices you make. For an aspiring musician, how would they look at, you know, getting involved with something like Musicians Institute? What are the qualifications? What do you need to have to be able to go there?
Maurice?
Well, we are a college of music, so we're trying to develop careers. So personally, myself, I think a student that enrolls at our school is going to get the most out of it if they've already done, you know, spent some years on the instrument, going through like similar experiences like Dave and I went, probably yourself as well, where you've gotten a feel of playing in ensembles and you're used to being on the instrument and have a little bit of probably some theory knowledge and some reading ability for this place to really be of value, I think. Now, we do get students that are less developed, and that's becoming more common, and we're catering to that. Mm-hmm. So we're building them up. You know, if that's the level that they come in, and we get them up into the college pace, you know, as soon as possible, with a thorough foundation, planted on the student before advancing ahead.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the qualifications differ. We'll have students come from a jazz background, and their theory is very together, and they know their neck, but sometimes playing in ensembles has been very limited because maybe they just did that in an academic environment and they never played out. And then we have, you know, young ladies and gentlemen that have been doing the rock thing, and they've been playing only in bands, and they've been, you know, playing either a part that the guitar player showed them, or they're being able to extract parts from listening to MP3s, things like that. So that both end up in a classroom. Now, when a student gets here, we run them through placement testing and make sure that we schedule them at the right level so that they're not repeating things that they already have, conquered, things like that.
Gotcha. Well, and I suppose because it kind of goes to my next question on how long of a program would it be for somebody, but I guess that depends on their skill level when they're starting out, right?
Yes, we do. We offer several different. I'm not a big fan of this word, packages of experiences here. Mm-hmm. We have a small 1 week summer camp called Summer Shot, and this gets attended by a lot of students that are pre-college age. So they might still be in high school and things like that. Yet we still had, we've had older gentlemen and ladies come in and play as well. And the great thing about music is once you get inside the classroom and you're holding your instrument, age and gender and that all goes away, and everybody's just learning from each other. And he's had this experience, or it's like, man, that 12-year-old kid can really play fast. You can kind of learn something from that because this individual doesn't really have any inhibitions about making mistakes or things like that. And there's something refreshing about that. So we have a Summer Shot thing. We also have part-time programs that we sell. As far as credentials, we have a certificate, and if you start at level 1, that would take a year to do that. We offer an AA degree here. If you start at level 1, that takes a year and a half to complete that. We also have a bachelor's degree available here too, which includes gen eds that we contract out off campus, but because MI's music 24/7, and that's what we teach on campus here. Yeah, so there's bachelors to like a 1 week summer camp, and there's a range in there. Now, what a student would choose is, that's how much time do they have to invest? The expense,
Mm-hmm.
the expense of living here in Los Angeles. These are all considerations that become this one equation that will dictate how long one person can get involved. As you well know, learning music never ends. So
No, absolutely. And I think that is one of the key things as I continue to talk to people. I mean, there are people that have had whole careers and they're still, pursuing, a project, or they're Rudy Sarzo was telling me that he spends a lot of time watching YouTube videos because he'll pick up a pearl here or a lick there and go, okay, I wanna do that in something I'm doing. And it is an evolution. And the instruments themselves are changing, as we go from original upright, and we're fortunate enough to live in a time when the bass is still electric bass is still a relatively young instrument.
True.
And so as it improves itself and they make changes in the features that make you able to do other things, and then add into it all of the solid state electronics and things, because I know there's people that I'm not a pedal guy. I like the sound of my instrument, but I realize that there's a lot of applications that you'll go, okay, I want it to do this, and that's a whole other thing. And I don't know whether it's just all the wires and knobs and switches that intimidate me, where I'd rather just plug in and play it straight up and go, okay, that's the way I want to hear it. Now, Dave, with what you do and your teaching, with the jazz background, are you teaching both upright and electric, or?
I do teach a little bit of upright, mostly electric. We do have a couple of other guys at MI that are more centered on the upright world. Putter Smith, world-class bass player, and a couple of other guys that are quite good at it. But mostly electric bass. I'm sorry, Maurice?
No, I was going to mention Lyman Medeiros is here, and Gary Beck. They all been on record. They have been on records, things like that. Yeah, they're part of that.
Yeah. So, but I teach at this moment. My schedule is I have a small office with some recording gear in it, and I do some recording of bass players and offer advice and critiques, and we discuss groove and tone and note choices and improvisation inside of the groove, this kind of thing. I also have a playing technique class, which is really just how to get your hands to do what you want them to do. Mm-hmm. I also have what's called an LPW, which is an acronym for Live Playing Workshop. And it's a blues live playing workshop, and I'm just the bass referee, if you will. And so the students come in and are assigned a tune a week. They come in and they play, and then again we critique and offer suggestions and this kind of things. And there's a live playing workshops for pretty much every style, including jazz, including hard rock, including modern rock, including R&B, including hip hop, including, I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch, but the one I happen to be teaching now is the blues. And what else do? I do a couple of private lessons. And so, and really my focus is I prefer not to get as much involved with the style aspect of it, which they get a lot of, and which I do talk about, but I prefer to just talk about the mechanics of music, and not just the mechanics of bass, but the mechanics of music, the language, if you will, the theory of the ear training, because as you related to your story earlier, a guy with a lot of music in him can make a lot of noise with something very simple, like a one-string bass he makes in Africa, or So that's because he has music in him, not because of the instrument. And so I try to encourage people to understand how important that is, so that whatever they choose, be it bass, 4, 5, 6 string, be it whatever, they have a lot of connection with what they're trying to get out.
Gotcha.
So. And so there's a combination of very, very formal aspect to the education there, and there's also a great deal of emphasis on just live playing, ensemble playing, which is great because, as you say, there's tons of great stuff on YouTube, and I watch a lot of it myself. The problem is you don't get instant feedback, and you don't have a building full of guys your own age that are just on fire for getting better. And most of the guys who show up to MI have decided it's more than just a hobby, because if it is, then it's an expensive way to sort of scratch an itch as a hobby. Most of them want to be professionals. And so they all have this mentality that they're trying to get enough skills to work. And so again, it's not like pick your favorite band and hope for the best. It's get enough skills of a variety of things so that you can go out and say, here's my sign on my door, professional bass player. I'm for hire. For your R&B gig, for your funk gig, for your reggae band, I'm for hire. So that's the thing that we try really hard at MI to do, is prepare them for a professional career.
Gotcha. And I think especially with bassists, because the bass is so often kind of off into a back corner somewhere, they're not looking to be the person in front, unless they're Sting or McCartney, you don't see them quite as much. And it's not until you have a chance to talk to some of these musicians that have been behind so much music that you go, oh my gosh, they're tremendously successful because they've been working so much. I had the chance to chat with Chuck Rainey, who is so soft-spoken, but he's probably like the most recorded bassist there is. But
right.
You start looking at the discography and you're going, oh my gosh, I didn't know he played on this. And, right. It's not until you go, oh yeah, Steely Dan. Oh yeah, okay. There was that one tune or something. And so I think working is one of the key words when it comes to music, because I think a commonality I keep hearing is that there is a lot of hard work, no matter how prepared you are, but obviously the better prepared you are, probably the better it's going to be as you find opportunities that you can actually seize,
Yeah, and there's probably 50 guys in LA that I could take you around to here that you'd go, wow, and that you'd never heard of, including, by the way, Maurice or I, for that matter. And you say, well, never heard of this guy, but there he is. He's doing a great job. He's making a living at it, and you don't have to be on the cover of Bass Player magazine to have a great career.
Oh, absolutely.
One of my expressions, you can be a house painter instead of an artist and still make a damn good living, so. Totally.
And with that, when they graduate, is there a program? They obviously will have their skills. They'll be stronger with theory. As with all academics, there's testing and there's levels they've had to achieve to be able to graduate. But as far as like job placement and things, is there any programs or anything that tie in with that?
We do have we do have a referral service here for our alumni.
Okay.
Now that always sounds like, oh, there's another newspaper with a classified section, and it's a little bit more than that. We do have a reputation that brings people that are running showcase auditions or looking to fill that one spot. They come to our school because they know that that's what is our product, is our graduates.
Sure.
And again, it's Hollywood, California, so they're looking for young people, and along with talent, there's a packaging too. What's their appearance? Are they engaging on stage? And as Dave mentioned, by the time they come here, I think, they do understand at least the outline of the profession and what to expect. Bass in its most employable state is a support instrument, and very little explaining needs to go into that with once they come here. I think a lot of them understand that. The comment we make at orientation when they first come here is like, consider yourself that you're auditioning every day, because the fact is the entire faculty is still working musicians. We don't have people that retired from performance and now are teaching. At least we don't have very much of that. Everybody's still performing. So a lot of kids, I got called for 3 things this Thursday. I can do the one. Let me ask Justin over here, my student, that I've seen for a year now. I'm going to throw him this job, and they get work from that, and that's hopefully snowballs and becomes something that eventually takes care of their bills. We're trying to prepare them to educate as well.
Sure.
The you know, some of the income that you make with music is not always with your bass in your hand. So we're teaching them, giving them skills to transcribe or compose and work with software music creation and things like that too. So as far as them graduating and having work ready to go, yes, we do our best to make that line up. That the gig lines up like 2 weeks after they finish graduation, that's not always the case. As you understand too, that some of these gigs, that lasts for 3 months. Then you got to come back in. You got to find another bass slot, things like that. So we're always keeping records of who's looking for musicians, and we try to fill those spots with MI grads. And it's also up to the graduate too. It's like, when you get back getting ready to complete a job, let us know so that we know that you're back ready to field other auditions or take some other jobs. We if you follow what we deliver here, we basically can promise that you're definitely going to be very competitive in the professional LA scene.
And I think one of the key things that always keeps coming up is networking, which sounds like it's kind of a hub, but so many times people that have come together, it's because they've had the opportunity to work together in the past, and whether it be classmates or they put together a combo or they did a side gig here and they went, okay, this guy, he really had a good sound, or he was responsible. So that part of the networking. But I think one of the other parts of this, which is very interesting with music in general, is that because it is a creative outlet and it is an artistic form, I think a lot of times the business side, I don't know, do you teach business
Yes.
because that seems to be always the area that people are kind of, I'll build it and they will come.
Well, and that is the way it's been for a lot of situations. Mm-hmm. Well, we actually do have a music business course here, and we do, that is a 6-month to a 1-year program, depending on what you want to do. If you're just doing music business, that's licensing, being an agent, manager, things like that. But now musicians and people that would go in the bass school or any of the performance studies here, if they're going for an AA degree in their 5th and 6th quarter with us, they do get 3 to 4 credits of business classes before graduating. That's part of that credential. So we're getting them acclimated to, the fine print and what to look out for, and at least the idea of economic wellness when getting out there into this world and this basically this environment that you were in consistent pay, you got a gig and everything's working now you don't have a gig, now you got to go teach some lessons, or you have to go pull a few nights with subbing for a friend who went out on another gig. So again, it's a reality check, and MI feels very responsible for making sure that these young professionals know what to expect and what to deal with when they get out there.
Got you. And it's one of the things that we enjoy a lot too, is talking with musicians at all levels and helping in a small way to network a little bit, because they've done something, they want to share it. And again, it's not enough. So many people, especially with software at home, I mean, almost anybody can make a CD anymore. Back in the day, especially when I played with a group that we did, studio time, and there was all these contractual agreements, and you were making like pennies on an album or something. And we, delegated that to like our director. He was the guy, and he talked it all up, and we thought we were doing great because we could afford to own our own instruments and pay for the band to take us places, like, and we had a rehearsal space. And so it was like, oh yeah, this is a tremendously successful group. We get together, we rehearse every Friday, we do these gigs, But we really didn't, as far as benefits in business, I don't think anybody really did very well from it. I mean, it was a lot of fun, and
it's ever changing, I think.
Yeah.
The business and how to approach it. Because once something becomes a formula, and you notice that's probably the end of that formula. That's going to be the way somebody got in to that success is probably not going to work anymore. As far as getting original material out, the world is wide open for you right now. That which also means there's a saturation factor to it too. Yeah. YouTube has got millions of videos on it, and millions of those are music ones or training ones or things like that too. So I always want to believe if you've made something good, something attractive, a nice melody, or you teach something pretty unique, people will find it, and it will find itself to the masses and people that you personally don't know. That's what you want to happen. You keep bringing up this term networking, and that has to be one of the biggest features of any music school, because it does come down to trust and a comfort zone. And if you know that this musician is somebody that is on that same latitude with you, then that's going to be an instant reflex to at least try to connect with that person, be it he or she, that's going to make your project advance the way you want it to.
Sure. Well, and if the school has 1,000 students and 30 of them are bass players, the bass players are popular people.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Because everybody needs a bass player, so the students are immediately sort of developing networking skills because they're getting approached daily by people who say, hey, I'm writing a song, or I'm recording a song, or I'm playing down the street, and so I need a bass player. And most of the bass players, if not all of them, are quite busy not only studying but actually doing some gigs with fellow students. So it's immediately sort of getting skills that they carry forward. And really, at the end of the day, I never had a business course, not a single one. You start, you meet somebody, and 10 days later you've met 3 people, and 30 days later you've met 5 people, and 30 days later you've met 5 people, and then it goes from there. Now, of course, times are different, and it doesn't hurt to have a business course.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, most bass players it's a word-of-mouth business for a freelance musician generally.
Gotcha.
So.
Well, and I think especially it comes up in recent events as we look at the Spinal Tap issues and litigation that are going on, and you start going, yeah, that might have been good to have made some contractual arrangements, that after all these years, and if they've seen like $89 of return, you go, yeah, how ever did that happen? And I know, some trusting, and people go, yeah, sure, this will be great. Even when I was back with my group, we got bought out by a label who basically warehoused our album because they had another group they wanted to promote, so they paid us enough to make us happy, and then they didn't sell our records.
Yeah.
I remember that going on. There was this shelving thing where people were basically blocking what could be competition.
Yeah.
You got paid to be blocked. So
and it seemed like a good idea at the time because they were guaranteeing. So you're like, oh, instead of getting a penny on every album, we'll guarantee you this much. And so I think all of those things, if you've got certainly a focused place where you've got educators and people whose experience you can pick from, whether it's in a formal setting or even on a one-to-one basis where you could go, well, what do I do, or how do I, or should I be saving for retirement or something? I mean, something as basic and simple as that, there might be a day that you don't. And a lot of our gear's also really expensive, especially with electric bass stuff. And sadly, we keep hearing more and more issues of instrument theft and, setbacks that were unexpected. And just when you thought you had everything the way you wanted it, you get back to your storage space and find your stuff's missing. There's a lot of things that you need to kind of have in mind and be able to talk to people and learn and get educated. So if there was somebody, and I'm hoping that a lot of the people that will see this will consider, hey, maybe this would be an option for me. What would be something that they would want to work on before they can apply? What skills would they want to develop before they would be looking to apply to Musicians Institute?
Well, I bet Dave and I say a lot of the same things. I think if you can get a little bit of reading in and a little bit of theory, I think you're that much of a head start. We do have classes that start from ground zero on those, but I think, if this is the first place that you're getting that, we all know that takes a little while for it to become a language that is fluent. So I think any attention to that prior to getting here is good. I think playing in bands, be it in, if you're doing something at your church or you're playing with buddies at your school or things like that, even if it sucks or something like that, at least it's a starting point, and it gets you used to hearing not just yourself but others, and trying to make your instrument fit in with those things and things like that. And really, if you're in a household with electricity, which I would imagine is the majority of us, get on this YouTube and just find something that turns you on, and get make the instrument something you really just want to excel on. That's something that I've seen that happen in music schools before too, where I think people signed on for music school and the only thing they learned is they hated music, and I just want to make sure that we never take the fun and the initial spark that made this want to happen out of students. So, and I think we do a pretty good job of that.
Sure. And Dave, any thoughts that you would recommend?
Well, I mean, just the wise guy answer is get as good as you possibly can before you show up, because the more advanced you enter the school, the more elevated the conversation can be, because we can have a very fundamental conversation or we can have a very elevated conversation. And you're going to get to the elevated conversation if you work at it hard enough. I mean, I think I see a certain percentage of students who completely underestimate how hard it is to get really good. Mm-hmm. So be prepared to work very, very hard. It's going to be fun, but it's going to be equally painful. And, you have to be prepared for that. You have to be mentally ready to say, like in anything, if you want to be a doctor, it takes a lot of work. If you want to be a scientist, it takes a lot of work. It's not showing up and saying, I bought a bass and here I am in Hollywood, here we go. It doesn't work like that unless you're really lucky. You got to show up and say, I want this more than this other guy, so I'm going to work harder than him. And because of that, I'll be successful. So, do what you can to get yourself prepared, and then show up and say, here I am, I want to work hard, help me. And if you have that attitude, you will get a lot out of the school.
Excellent. And I'm hoping, because one of the areas that we're particularly seeing a big drop in funding for in the arts is music education at earlier levels. And so here you've got a great program for the older students, but they may lack in a foundation. So hopefully those people that are in areas that can teach and can help younger students, maybe give them a boost to where at some point, if they could go to MI, they'd be able to kind of pick up from there, and we can compensate. And I'm hearing a lot of efforts from the community of people that are getting involved with community programs and helping out where they can. And a lot of the musicians I talk to that have an abundance of instruments actually will kind of lend out their bass, because people kind of shower them with instruments. When they're really good, they get sent a lot of stuff, and they're like, if I've got a kid that's going to play, I'll let him borrow it as long as he's actively playing. The moment he decides to, slide it under his bed and not touch it, then he needs to give it back to me, and I'll give it to another kid that wants to play. But you've really got to have a desire to do that. Where would be?
Well, that's why you should probably find a great teacher in your community as soon as you can, and ask around who's doing a great job. Mm-hmm. and find someone to mentor and to get you up and running, so that if you do decide to go MI, like I said, you're
ready to go.
You're prepared to hit the ground running the best you possibly can.
Gotcha. And where would be the best place if somebody wanted to find out more information, a website or where they should go to get more information about your program?
mi.edu. And it has a catalog there. I'm Maurice V at mi.edu. Please write me. We can talk about your E string, and we can talk about your bachelor's degree, whatever. I'm nerdy. We're nerdy about it here. Bass, and getting young players out working. That's what we want to do. So
excellent. Well, gentlemen,
if you Google Musicians Institute, you would probably find not only the website, but some videos that people have done and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, yeah, we have our own YouTube channel and everything like that, and easy to find. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, gentlemen, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. We appreciate and sharing your insight into the bass program at Musicians Institute. Again, Maurice Verloop, David Keif. Folks, you've seen it here live, Bass Musician Magazine. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Raul.
Thank you, Raul. Have a great one, man.
You
Groove
too.
on.